Hi, and welcome to Inside Iowa Politics. I'm Dave Price, the Iowa Political Director for Gray Television. When Governor Kim Reynolds proposed major changes to the state's area education agencies, it brought a lot of conversation and a lot of pushback. She wanted to limit some of the duties and responsibilities for these local AEAs. In some cases, she would give more of that to the school districts and she would give more state oversight. Too much pushback on all of this, so the legislature decided to do some of its own changes. Now, this involves 9 AEAs. And for the most part, there has been a system in place for the last half century, although there was a time when they reduced the number of AEAs from 15 to 9. So let's talk about this House Republican plan that passed this past week. Some of the key highlights: AEAs would keep delivering special education services for the district. Now, the districts would then decide whether to use the AEAs for things like media services. The AEAs would still get federal money, unlike what the governor had wanted. And in the end, there would be a mix of local and state oversight. Now, a key figure in these discussions is State Representative Brent Segrist. He was a teacher early in his career for about 2 decades. Then he was a legislator for about 2 decades, including a stint as the House Speaker. He ran for Congress, so he left the legislature. He lost that race. And then he took over as the first executive director for the Iowa Association of AEAs. Had that for a while, and then now is back in the legislature. So he's looking at this debate based on his experiences in education and politics.
Area education agencies serve a vital purpose in Iowa all across the state, particularly in special education. So there are some changes that need to be made, but the main thing we need to do in trying to craft a compromise is to make sure that special education parents and students don't lose any of those services. So that's kind of the guiding principle that I think you'll see us act on. That we're not going to make any changes to the special ed parent or student and the services they receive. We want to improve those scores and make changes that way, but the services will still be there. That's kind of the guiding issue for us. Some of the other things the AEAs do, which are very important, may have some changes to them, but we want to make sure special education services remain and we improve on those test scores.
I don't know if this is old school Republican thought or not, but the concept of local control I know is important to you. How are you trying to preserve as much aspect of local control in this as you can?
There's probably 2 parts to it. One of them is the boards that each AA has. Some people want to make them into an advisory board, which really doesn't work. And so we want to make sure that maybe we'll expand the board membership and maybe make sure we have a superintendent or 2 on there, that they maintain that local control, if you will, of each one of the 9 AEAs. So that's the major thing to look at. The other thing is, and the governor has talked about, we want the money to go directly to the schools and let them make the choices they want to make. I think what you'll see the House pass, and part of the compromise will be to a year from now, give them a year to get ready. The media and technology services, which is about $33 million, send that directly to the schools and let them make that local decision. And then 2 years from now, the educational services, which are a variety of things, English as a second language, reading stuff, send that money, which is another 35 million or about 30 million, I think, to the districts, let them decide that. So that'll be more local control for the districts, but we're going to make sure that the special education processes go through the AEAs because I think they do it better than anybody else.
Back when you were speaker, you all kind of worked your way through this, but when you reduced the number of AEAs in our state, and then I think you helped carry it out when you were with the AEAs. But what was that process like, and how were you assuring, especially the families back then, that you weren't going to hurt their child's education in the process?
Yeah, I mean, originally there were 15 AEAs. We eventually merged them down to 9. Some people would like to merge further, and we They could probably do that in a couple of instances, but in terms of the parents, we just had to make sure those services were there. And when you merge a couple of AEAs, what you have to do is set up some regional facilities to make sure you maintain those services. The AEAs right now, the special ed people are typically on the road a lot anyway, and so not much change. It did allow you to get rid of some of the administrative overhead by merging those people down, merging the AAs down. But I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say, because the parents, I think, over the last 15, 20 years have still been pleased with the services they received. And if we were to merge the AAs down from 9, we'd have to make sure that those services don't suffer.
Back when you were speaker, you obviously dealt with this firsthand. You got to get your caucus to go for something, get something the Senate will go for, and then, especially depending on which party the governor was, but get a governor to go along with this. Doing something with AEAs here is a gubernatorial priority. So there has to be an impetus to do something here, right?
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, some people have said we should simply do a task force study and then come back and act on those recommendations. Theoretically, I agree with that, but because it is the governor's priority, and it doesn't matter if it's Governor Reynolds or Culver or Vilsack, Branstad, they tend to get at least part of their priorities through. And so, I think our viewpoint in the House with Speaker Grassley and Majority Leader Winchittle is we need to do more than just a study because this is the governor's priority. So the House is attempting to address some of the concerns she has, make sure we don't do any harm, but set the AAs up for future success, understanding that the governor is going to want something, and we need to try to work with her to get it done. And I think we're on pretty good track to get a compromise that eventually, hopefully, she'll accept. She probably will push back on some stuff, but that's the nature of the beast, and we're going to do what we think's best in the House that we can get enough votes for that will, I think, set the AEs up for future success.
The dynamics of this have been interesting in the sense that, it's one party control. You have super majorities in the chambers here. There's a proposal that comes out, and there's such backlash that there have been numerous changes since then. And I appreciate, you all have some ideas in the House, and the Senate may have some other ideas, and the governor may have still others. What the dynamics of this? What was that like to get that public pushback on all of this, and then to try to recalibrate?
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising. Obviously, the governor's goals to improve the test scores and make the AAs more efficient. I have no problem with those goals. I think the way she went about it probably was not the best way. I don't think she brought enough people to the table before trying to roll out her plan. And so the backlash was immediate and it was hot. And I think she was surprised by that. But to her credit, she tried to recalibrate. It wasn't enough. And so the House is trying to work with her to make something that we can get people to accept that does some good. But the backlash from particularly the parents. I mean, the AEA employees who are worried about losing their jobs, obviously they're going to send you emails. But what was pretty overwhelming was the parents and then the actual special ed teachers in the schools, because people need to understand the AEAs aren't doing the special education teaching. They are support for that. The teachers are actually in the local school district, and we got literally 1,000 emails. I mean, literally, and the parents are pretty vocal, and so the pushback was immediate. It was hot, and I think it stopped the plan cold, and now we're trying to work our way through it, make sure we can, like I said, do good things and set the AAs up for good future.
I'll put you on the spot a bit here, but you've had a long career. Can you compare this issue to something else that you've dealt with over your career in terms of how the public pushed back?
Yeah, I'm not. If I thought about it, I probably could. You got me off guard there a little bit. One current issue that has the heat would be the carbon pipeline. I mean that's similar, although the rollout wasn't the same, and that's kind of a different issue. But every year, every state of the state, a governor, Democrat or Republican, usually rolls something out we don't know about. And that's fine. That's the way the system works. But when she proposed a couple of years ago, basically eliminating regular gas for E15, there was quite a bit of backlash on that. And again, we worked it out, and I think it worked out very well. So there have been a couple issues like that. But when you talk about education and when you talk about parents of kids with special needs, they are extraordinarily protective of their kids, and they want everything they possibly get. and they're never satisfied. And I totally get that, because you want the best you can get for your kids. And so when you start to deal with parents like that, the pushback is hot, it's fierce, and it doesn't go away. And so we're addressing those concerns by making sure those special ed services are going to stay the same.
Uh, you were a teacher when you started out, teacher and coach. That's got to still be in your mind as you have these discussions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basically, aside from politics, I've spent my career in education, taught for 18 years, did the political thing, was with the AEAs, which is education. So yeah, it's pretty deep in my soul. So I have a lot of sympathy for the parents that are concerned. That's why we're working so hard, and I'm being as good a soldier as I can be to help the leadership in the House bring the people together and do good things.
Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley has been a colleague of Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell ever since 1985. So a long, long time. I talked to Grassley about McConnell's decision to step down as his party's leader in the Senate in November. Now, of course, McConnell has had some high profile clashes with former President Donald Trump, and he blamed him for firing up his supporters back on January the 6th, 2021. McConnell said that Trump was feeding them a lot of election falsehoods, that Trump really won when he didn't. And as we know, Trump supporters ended up attacking the U.S. Capitol building, attacking law enforcement that day. And some of them had tried to stop the certification of Trump's defeat and Joe Biden's victory in that general election in 2020. Now, as we have seen since, Trump played a big role in getting Mike Johnson chosen as the next Speaker of the House. Remember all that drama when the caucus booted out the former Speaker, Kevin McCarthy. However, Grassley told me he does not believe Trump will play a prominent role in deciding the next Republican leader in the Senate.
There's no way that a president or a candidate for president can have an impact on that, because a secret ballot within the caucus, and nobody knows how anybody else voted unless you want to tell them. And so that's the answer in regard to potential Trump nomination. In regard to the first question about McConnell, it's a complete surprise, I'm sure, to all 48 other Republican senators. I never heard anything about it. I never suspicioned it. And I think as I look on his leadership, I would emphasize a legacy. I don't know what he would consider his legacy, but I would consider his legacy the impact he had on the Supreme Court.
Now, the final five additional issues as we head into this weekend. Number one, this GOP split on the House Republicans' AEA bill. Representative Brent Segrist foreshadowed this. He said they would lose some members. He was right. 53 Republicans voted for it. 9 ended up voting against the changes. Number two, now it's the Senate's turn, and it seems like the Senate might be more closely aligned with the governor on AEA changes. Let's see what actually makes it through the Senate and how different it is from the House version. Number three, student fears about safety at school. You have legislative Republicans who believe that arming more teachers and staff would better protect students in times of an emergency. But you have some families, some teachers, and some students who have the opposite belief, and they believe that more guns would make them less safe. Now we'll see if districts and legislators will do something to ease those fears and take that into consideration. Number four, medical marijuana. This is a little inside baseball, but there was a hearing where you had Tim Coonan and Jeff Boink talk about this idea of expanding medical marijuana dispensaries in our state. Both have worked for Republicans. Both are serving as lobbyists on behalf of clients who are involved in medical marijuana. It's just not an issue you normally might first think that, oh, Republicans are part of this. So just kind of an interesting moment. Number five, President Joe Biden has finally gone to the southern border. Donald Trump did as well. And Biden, again, was talking about the need for Congress to do something here. But in light of political reality here, where it seems like Republicans don't really want to do anything on this and keep this as an issue for the November election, would the stronger political move for President Biden be to say, hey, Congress isn't going to do something, I'm going to, and just do a series of executive orders to do something regarding security at the southern border? This isn't just a Democrat-Republican issue, it seems. If you start looking at the middle of the road kind of folks who want something to happen here, and they could be swing voters in this November election, would it be better for the president to do something so he's letting the American people know this is an important issue for him? We'll see. Thanks for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.